Hello, good evening. My name is Duncan, and welcome to Baft Books, as nobody is calling it. According to in the evening, it's sort of mid-evening, it's about 8 o'clock-ish. So I've had to play around with some lights to try and get myself lit properly. It's the first time I've done this, so hopefully I've done an okay job. Normally at the weekend, I like to do my pick and mix ones, where I go through some stuff that I've read this week and the Times Literary Supplement. But we've actually had a postal strike this week, so I've not received my Times Literary Supplement. I've not read as much as I normally would in the week, so there's not huge amounts to talk about. But what I have started doing is a little bit of an experiment. I am actually sorting out the room behind there. There's my art desk over there, and there's some bookshelves there and bookshelves over there, and obviously the bookshelves behind me. So I'm having a bit of sort out. So I've started doing some bit of recording to hopefully piece it together in some sort of bookshelf vloggy thing that hopefully I'll get out early this week. But we will see how that goes and what the film footage I've done looks like. I wanted, though, because I wasn't doing my pick and mix, to get something up this weekend, because I said I've only just started this channel and I'm trying to hit sort of 3 videos a week. And I had a think and I thought, I'm quite a big fan of novelisations. So for you, I've got 4 novelisations that I would recommend reading. It's sort of 4.5, because the half is because it's not really a novelisation and it's related to one of the other ones. These are no specific order to what the quality of them. But what I will say is that Alan Dean Foster is overrepresented, as he would be, because he's like the king of them, but he's not the only person in here. So we will start with the first one I was going to go through, and this is V. Okay. This is the novelisation of the mini-series of V. It is both the original 4 hours and the 6 hours of the final battle, written by Anne Crispin. Those of you who are sort of my age and older will remember when the event that V was when it came on. If you've not seen it, it's still well worth watching now. But I remember it was on the same time as the Los Angeles Olympics in the UK, and it was a huge, huge thing. It was advertised on our main TV channels, and it's basically a alien invasion, first contact situation with an alien race, and they come over, and it's got lots of parallels with Nazi Germany, written by Kenneth Johnson, who's revived it once on Sci-Fi Channel, and that was okay, but it wasn't as good as the original series. I said this novelisation by Anne Crispin, who sadly died about 2003, and she was only about 60 of, I think it was bowel cancer. She's a very good writer. She wrote, one of the first books she wrote was Yesterday's Sun, which was a Star Trek tie-in, which was about Spock, which is really good. She wrote some of her own stuff and some Star Wars ties-in, some Han Solo books I've read, all very well good. And this one, as a good novelisation would do, you know, people poo-poo novelisations and think, oh, they're not good, they're just whatever. But a good person writing novelisation will work within those bounds and manage to bring so much more to the story. And I think V succeeds in all those ways. Anne Crispin's a very good writer. It's very readable. She also did, there's also another book in the series called The East Coast Crisis that she wrote with Harold Weinstein, which was basically about, obviously on the East Coast of America, about what happened there. And that was not related directly to the miniseries at all, but it's well worth a read as well. There's a bunch of other books that I don't know anything about, because I think they were more related to the TV series that followed. But if you're after a good rollicking read, you know, alien invasion, first contact story, this is well worth doing it, even if you've not seen the original TV miniseries, though I would urge you to, because it is great. Yes, some of the effects, there's some makeup effects that look a bit plasticky now, but the overall plot of it, especially the first 4 hours, are really right on, perfect television, perfectly written, and it just forms really well. So that's my first one. Second choice is by Piers Anthony, and it is Total Recall. Okay, this is a bit of a weird one, because Total Recall is based on the Philip K. Dick story We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which is a short story, and the film is not much like that story. So they got Piers Anthony to write the novelisation, And Piers Anthony is a pretty solid writer. I don't think he's as good as some of them out there for, especially novelisations, but within the boundaries, he's done a very good, a very readable version of the film, which has got some added elements which are slightly different. And as a whole story, it works well. If you look at some of Piers Anthony other stuff, the Apprentice of Depth series and the Incarnations of Immortality are some of his best ones. He's known well for Zamp, which has got lots of puns in. I'm not a huge fan of the Zamp series, but Incarnations of Immortality, especially the first one, On a Pale Horse, is well worth reading. But yes, so that is the novelisation of that. But if you really want to go down to it, you also should read the Philip K. Dick story of We Can Remember It For Your Wholesale, which is in a collection of books behind me. And then, for the next one, I said it's 4. I'm doing, well, 4.5. And the final ones are going to hit Mr. Alan Dean Foster, who, as far as I'm concerned, is a master of it. Master of novelisations, of fitting stuff in within the confines of the script and the stories he's been given. So the first one I would recommend is Original Alien. This is my original copy from 1980. And it is a glorious book. It expands enough on the story. You find out things you didn't about the hypersleep and all about the relationships between the crew, and Andy Foster, the way he feels like the characters a bit more than what they are on the screen, works well, and you hear some of the background stories a lot more. And I said Andy Foster is just a master of this sort of things. He's the sort of guy I would really, really love to interview at one point if I could get hold of him. I doubt he would speak to somebody like me. And my final one, or 1.5, is the biggie. It is Star Wars. Okay, this book says George Lucas, but it is in fact written by Andy Foster. This is my original novelisation I brought, with the wonderful pictures in the middle from the film. And what's interesting about this is he wrote this. He had the script. He had some pre-production paintings from Ralph McQuarrie. Actually, the picture on the front there is Hero Brothers' famous picture. But yeah, he had some pictures, some pre-production paintings by Ralph McQuarrie, the artist. And he had a copy of a 60mm reel of film, which they used to take around film conventions to try and sell the film. And that was it. So in this book, the interesting thing is you have many elements that aren't in the original film because they were in, because this was released before the film, along with the Marvel comic series, which are Wells. So you have the bit when, if you know your Star Wars, there's a bit in the beginning with Biggs, his friend, who you see at the end, but he's not at the beginning because it was cut out of the original film. That is in here. There's also a famous bit with Jabba the Hutt, who is a man in this, when Han Solo meets him. So that's all still in here. And he just manages to round it all out right, and his writing style is, as I said, is really good. So I have that version there, which is my original version. I've got another version somewhere else, and I've got this version, which is all 3 of the films. And I've also got the individual ones as well, and I've probably got another one. The half, the final thing I would recommend for somebody to read, if you enjoy your Star Wars and you enjoyed that novelisation, I've got a couple of copies of this. I can't find my original one, but this is another version of this I've got. This was Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And this is a sequel to Star Wars that was never filmed. Alan Dean Foster was asked to write a sequel, a low-budget sequel, so that George Lucas could make a sequel if Star Wars didn't do as well, very well, which he wasn't expecting to do as well as it was. So this story, the interesting thing about it is there's hardly any limitations on it. So it was basically just to try and keep the budgets down. So there's no Han Solo or Chewbacca in it. It's about Luke and Leia going to a planet and trying to get some crystals. The interesting thing about it is obviously because Alan Dean Foster could develop it now, so he followed the plot line that seemed to be going that Luke and Leia having a romantic relationship, which, as we know, didn't happen. And also the force powers are much more reduced compared to when you see in the prequels and what have you. And I always wonder what would happen if they'd continued this sort of line with the stories. It is a really, really good story. very well done. And the fact that Andy Foster had no limitations meant that he could just basically do what he wanted. Because after the original Star Wars was done, it was almost a free-for-all. Like if you see some of the stories in the original Marvel comics with Jackson, the 6-foot bunny, which is stunning. There's some great stories because people had a lot more free reign than the way they screwed it down afterwards, and the way, especially after the prequels, it all got down in law. And I said Disney people aren't given much of a free reign at all. So I would recommend that if you enjoy Star Wars and you enjoy that novelisation, to read the follow-up. But if you're not of my age, you have to accept that it won't follow any of the timelines that you expect it to follow. I said I'm quite a big fan of novelisations. I've got many more I can show you, and I probably will in the future. But those are 4 if you want to get started on some science fiction ones to start with. I said the Alien one is absolutely excellent. The V one is worth reading. And I said Piers Anthony, Total Recall, well worth doing. I said hopefully this quick video's interested you enough. I've said before, I've got a video on Robert Sheckley that I'm trying to get out. I was going to do it at the back end of last week, but life got in the way, so I'm hoping to have it out early next week. And I said, even though I won't be doing my pick and mix this week, I will still put something up about the Times Literary Supplement when it arrives. I don't know, hopefully it'll arrive Monday, but I said it's obviously been caught up in the mail after the strike we had. But yeah, I said, I hope you found some of that interesting. I said, if you want to hear more about novelisations, maybe just put a comment down below. I said, I've got loads of them. And I said, I think they are sort of, they're not high literature, but I think they are sometimes underestimated how good they can be. Yes, there is some, as with any sort of literature, there are some terrible versions out there. But at their best, and you get the best writers on them, they can be very good. And you'll be amazed what writers have done stuff. You have writers of the caliber of David Gerald doing Planet of the Apes, and yeah, even Robert Sheckley, who I'm going to talk about, he did some Babylon 5 tie-in books, and there's lots of good writers that have done novelisations and tie-in books. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I said I'll see you again on the next video, and I said hopefully I might have something a bit different to come up next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.